Thank you, Tejas. Hello, everyone. Today's webinar is going to address something which is as fast as cheetah. Well, I'm not referring to any racing car. This is something which is related to most common health element, that is cough, which travels at the speed of 50 miles per hour. Cough is one of the most prevalent health issue and one of the most common cause of visits to primary care and pharmacy setups. I am Dr. Rahul Mandlik. Welcome you all on behalf of Shalina Healthcare and also would like to extend our warm welcome to today's speaker, Dr. Suryakant Tripathi. Very briefly about Shalina Healthcare. Today, we are one of the largest pharmaceutical companies across sub-Sahara Africa, and from last 35 years, we have made it our mission of making quality healthcare products and to make them available at affordable prices across Africa. And we achieve this by manufacturing in our WHO approved facility. And as a part of social responsibilities, we deliver a range of healthcare services such as antenatal camps, malaria and deworming camps across Africa. Today's session is part of Shalina's webinar series, which comes under the initiative of SPEED. And you can see the logo on the screen, that is Shalina's Professional Engagement and Education. With this, let me welcome today's speaker, Dr. Suryakant Tripathi, who is going to take us through very basics to management tips of acute cough. Dr. Tripathi is professor and head of Department of Respiratory Medicines at King George Medical University, Lucknow, India. Dr. Tripathi is an honorary professor at Indian Medical Association, president of Indian College of Allergy, Asthma and Applied Immunology. He has been past president of National College of Chest Physician, Indian Chest Society, Medical Science Section at Indian Science Congress Association. Currently, he is member of Editorial Advisory Board, Journal of Indian Medical Association, Central and Executive Committee of Tuberculosis Association of India, and National Task Force for Tuberculosis Elimination from Government of India. And he is also member of Working Group for UP State Tobacco Control Cell in India. Currently, he is state COVID trainer and he is in charge of very technologically driven virtual ICU rounds of COVID centers. So while you attend this webinar, and if you have any queries, please feel free to post them in the box provided. We will discuss it during Q&A session. Over to Dr. Tripathi, please.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shalina, and thank you, the DocMod Healthcare Technologies. And a great thanks to all the medical associations of the Saharan and, of course, African countries, including the Kenya Medical Association, Ghana Medical Association, and so many other associations. It is my proud privilege to, of course, interact with the people of Africa, the general practitioners, the specialists, and some kind of I just forget what is they call the the caregivers, primary caregivers. Yeah, it's a really very fortunate day for India also that today we have launched the vaccination program against COVID-19. And I'm really happy to share you that I am the first one to be vaccinated from my institute. Rather, I am the only doctor today who has been vaccinated for COVID-19. So this is the beauty of vaccine. You can see just 7 hours before I got vaccinated, I am very much here to present this webinar before you. So I'm comfortable. There is no problem as far as post-vaccination situation is concerned. So with this background, the of course topic given to me for today's discussion is acute cough caused by infections and allergies, place of multi-component therapy. Next, please. And of course, if you see the cough is only a symptom, not a disease. So first time, I think we are interacting on not a topic that is related to a disease, but it's a symptom, simply symptom. but it is the most common respiratory symptom. An importance of cough is determined when our associated symptoms are evaluated. Next, please. Cough. What is the cough? It's a forced expulsive maneuver, usually against a closed glottis, and which is associated with a characteristic sound. It's a natural reflex reaction in response to irritation of the air passage and lungs. Next, please. And if you see what is the basic function of the cough, cough preserves the gas exchange function of the lungs by facilitating clearance of aspirate, inhaled particulate matter, accumulated secretions, and irritants that are either inhaled or formed at site of mucosal inflammation. Next, please. Now, if you see just what is the scenario in India, globally, and in African countries, then of course there is a worldwide prevalence of cough ranges from 5 to 40%. So wide variation. Acute cough is the commonest presentation in primary care. Prevalence of chronic cough is reported to be 3 to 40% in many countries in Europe and USA. Prevalence of cough in West Africa is 20.6%. Acute cough accounts for highest number of cases. In Africa, around 80% of population live in households which use polluting fuels as source of energy, which usually we call as biomass fuel, which can be a measure of cough disorders. We must be thankful in India to our beloved Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has replaced this biomass fuel by the clean fuel, and he has provided more than 80 million house families of this poor families of the country, of course, by replacing this biomass fuel to the clean fuel. Next, please. But how common in general practice? Yes, it is the common. In Africa, majority of subjects with acute cough, around 88%, subacute cough, around 100%, and 60% of the chronic cough cases are yet to consult a doctor, means they are not consulting a doctor. So cough is presumed or taken as a not a serious problem. And that's why most of the, of course, cough symptomatics, they are not presenting their complaints to doctor. Chronic cough is one of the most common indication for a referral to a pulmonary specialist throughout the globe. Careful history taking and physical examination at the primary care level can narrow the diagnosis in many of these patients. Next, please. And if you see the types of cough, then it can be wet cough or productive cough. It can be dry cough, depending upon the production of secretions or expectorant. Now, depending upon the duration, cough can be acute cough. Cough lasting for less than 3 weeks is called acute cough. Cough lasting for about 3 to 8 weeks is called subacute cough. And cough which lasts for the more than 8 weeks is called chronic cough. Next, please. And distribution of causes of acute cough in typical general practice, if you see, then 60% of the acute cough is attributed to common cold, and rest of the other causes are the acute bronchitis, asthma, chronic bronchitis, or acute exacerbation of COPD, environmental causes, influenza, and some other causes. Next, please. Now, how to make the diagnosis and management of acute cough. Next, please. Now, history is very important. Now, if you become the, if you are GP, if you are a primary caregiver, if you are a specialist, but there is no alternative of history. So careful history is a very important first point in approaching the diagnosis towards the any disease, maybe acute cough. So attention should be paid to duration of the cough, timing of the cough, frequency of the cough, nature of the cough, pitch, character, predisposing or exacerbating factors for the cough, body position, means which position you have the more cough, other accompanying symptoms. Next, please. Physical examination. So after history, the second step is doing some physical examination. Three steps in any diagnosis for approaching the history. First is history, second is examination, and third is certain investigations. Detailed examination should include five things. What are these? The nasal examination of nasal passages, examination of pharynx, larynx, trachea, and lungs. Important to note: position of the trachea, visible distinction of jugular veins, condition of the pharynx, larynx, and nasal cavity, and breath sound. Next, please. Now, this is a very important table. If you see the clinical findings in common causes of acute cough in adults. If you see, these are the most common causes of acute cough, and what kind of scenario can be when you are, of course, taking the history and, of course, taking other things into account. Now, if you see the cause in common cold, the cause is mainly viruses. In influenza, again, it's an influenza viruses. Acute bronchitis, usually viruses, bacteria, and can be some other microorganism. Acute rhinosinusitis, usually viruses, bacteria, and allergy is the cause. Acute exacerbation of COPD, usually bacteria or viruses may be the cause. If you see the sputum production, then of course, it's in common cold, it's a plus minus. In influenza, it's a 1 plus, like acute bronchitis, 1 plus or 2 plus. Acute rhinosinusitis, plus minus or 1 plus. But in acute exacerbation of COPD, usually 2 plus. So sputum production also varies in various conditions. If you see treatment in general practice, then symptomatic treatment for common cold, the non-aminidase inhibitors, amantadine for influenza type A, and then for acute bronchitis, susceptible antibiotics and other symptomatic treatment. For similarly, acute rhinosinusitis, also susceptible antibiotics and anti-allergics. For acute exacerbation of COPD, of course, the antibiotics according to the culture and sensitivity. If you see the prognosis, for common cold, usually it's a self-limiting disease. Throughout the globe, it's a very common condition, but it's a self-limiting. Influenza, generally good, but maybe life-threatening in older persons and those with underlying disease. For acute bronchitis and viral infection, generally good, but may progress to chronic cough. For acute rhinosinusitis, nasal steroids are the choice. Generally, prognosis is good, but may progress to chronic cough. And in acute exacerbation of COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, refractory to treatment in some cases, but usually it is also good. Next, please. Now, investigation. So I said for approaching any disease, three things are important. And these three things are: the first, history; the second, of course, physical examination; and third is the investigation. So how investigation they are helpful for approaching the acute cough. Acute cough is unlikely to need any investigation. Most of the time, by simple history and doing physical examination, you can reach at the diagnosis or the cause of the etiology of the cough. The common serious, or I can say life-threatening conditions presenting with acute cough are the pulmonary embolism. So you must be, of course, cautious regarding the pulmonary embolism. This can be a life-threatening condition which may present with only cough and breathlessness. Congestive heart failure, pneumonia, lung cancer, pulmonary tuberculosis, interstitial pneumonias, pneumothorax, and of course, nowadays, COVID pneumonia also. Similarly, the common causes of acute cough usually have a normal chest radiograph finding. So usual investigation is the chest X-ray. Sometimes you require CT thorax, and sometimes you require certain blood investigation. But most of the time, if the chest X-ray is normal, then you should think of viral respiratory tract infection, allergic cough, bacterial infection, acute bronchitis, inhaled foreign body, usually in children, and inhaled toxic fume, which is, of course, irritant. Now, symptoms prompting a chest radiograph means if these symptoms are present, you must do chest X-ray. What are these? Hemoptysis, chest X-ray is must. Breathlessness, chest X-ray is must. Fever, chest X-ray is must. Chest pain, chest X-ray is must. Weight loss, chest X-ray is must. And if patient presenting with cyanosis, chest X-ray is mandatory. So that is how you, of course, approach for the diagnosis of acute cough. Next, please. Yes, how you assess the acute cough? Very simple. Now, by taking history examination and by doing certain investigation, you divide like cough, whether this is life-threatening cough or this is non-life-threatening, of course, cough. Life-threatening means the possibilities are like pneumonia, severe exacerbation of asthma, severe exacerbation of COPD, pulmonary embolism, heart failure, and certain other like pneumothorax or certain other diseases. Now, non-life-threatening disorders means simply they can be infections, upper respiratory tract infections or lower respiratory tract infection. They can be exacerbation of pre-existing condition, for example, asthma, bronchiectasis, or COPD. There can be environmental and occupational situations also, and sometimes the certain unexplained causes. Next, please. Now, after taking the detailed history, doing physical presentation, the clinical presentation of cough, physical examination, identify symptom and signs suggestive of a specific disease. So first, you have rule out whether I'm dealing with a life-threatening serious disorder as a etiology of cough or non-life-threatening. Once you have decided, then of course, you have to identify the cause of the cough. Then of course, perform chest radiography. That's the usually recommendation. Perform spirometry in collaborative children aged more than 5 years. Nowadays, usually spirometry is not being done, but as this COVID problem will go off, you will use more and more spirometry, lung function testing. Then of course you have to reach like symptom and sign of a specific disease present and a specific of course pointer identify, investigate and treat according. So once you find the specific cause, treat according to specific disease. Symptom and signs of specific disease absent, then of course specific pointers are not identified. Then of course you have to decide whether I'm dealing with a cough with expectoration, means the wet cough, or I'm dealing with a dry cough, that is cough without expectoration. So these are the two important issues. We will discuss how to approach cough with expectoration and how to approach a dry cough. Next, please. Now, first discussing the wet cough, that is cough associated with expectoration. Attempt sputum culture. Try to find out the sputum culture, or if need be, then you can investigate sputum for acid-fast bacilli, for CB-net, for fungus, and so many other microbes. Treat with antibiotics as per, of course, the report. And then if it is not resolved after prolonged course of antibiotics, then investigate for the underlying disease. If it is resolved and no recurrence, then left as it is. If it is recurrence, then treat and follow up closely for the sequelae. Next, please. On other hand, if it is dry cough, means it is not associated with expectoration, then check for the irritants, check for the, of course, you can do the allergy testing, rule out the, of course, precedent infection, then follow up for 4 weeks. If a spontaneous regression, then follow until spontaneous resolution. If it is persisting, means dry cough is persisting, then 4 to 8 weeks, means 1 to 2 months trial of inhaled corticosteroids. So that is a boon for the management of dry cough. If the cough is persisting beyond 1 month, then of course you have to give 1 month to 2 month trial of inhaled corticosteroid. If there is a resolution after the end of 2 months, then follow up for the recurrence. If it is persistent, then of course investigate for the underlying disease. Next, please. Now, very important entity that is called cough hypersensitivity syndrome. So usually it's a variant of allergic cough. And what you have to think of for this cough hypersensitivity syndrome, you have to think of rhinitis, rhinosinusitis, use of ACE inhibitor. Take the drug history if the patient is taking ACE inhibitors. And then, of course, cigarette smoking, that can be just because of a smoker's cough. Pulmonary diseases, so rule out the pulmonary diseases, certain, of course, hypersensitivity, pneumonitis, and certain other diseases. Reflux diseases, because lifestyle nowadays has become a very chaotic. So you have to rule out the reflux as a cause of dry cough. And of course, asthma and eosinophilic bronchitis. So you have to take the peripheral blood smear and of course, blood counts, complete blood count. And if eosinophils are more than 6%, then of course, you have to think of some eosinophilic disorder also. So basically, cough hypersensitivity syndrome is a clinical entity characterized by cough as a major component, which is often triggered by low levels of thermal, mechanical, or chemical exposure. And basically, this is an umbrella term encompassing various cough-related conditions or unexplained cough. Next, please. The multi-component treatment. Yes, so we are reaching the next part of the talk, that is what kind of multi-component treatment we are using for the management of cough. So if you have find out the etiology of the cough, so treat as per etiology. This is called specific treatment. If you are unable to identify, then of course non-specific treatment, or even symptomatic treatment. Non-specific treatment and symptomatic treatment both can be given simultaneously. If you find the etiology, then of course a specific treatment and certain non-specific treatment. If you don't find etiology, then only non-specific treatment. So for this is non-specific treatment meant for the symptomatic relief. Also can be pharmacological, means by medicine, can be non-pharmacological, means with the help of some non-pharmacological formulations. Next, please. For specific treatment, of course, determining precise cause and then initiating a specific therapy, smoking cessation, antibiotics, of course, eliminating gastroesophageal reflux, and avoidance of ACE inhibitors. Next, please. Then coming to the non-specific treatment, and of course, after the non-specific treatment, the non-pharmacological therapy. And first, we will discuss the natural remedies. Why? Because these natural remedies are also common in India, also common in African countries. And of course, the usual natural remedies are present in your kitchen. So various, you see the herbs, various spices, and of course, daily routine use practice in the home, they can be used as a home remedy or natural remedies. Now, some natural remedies help to relieve a cough and sore throat. Natural remedies are generally considered are safe. Common natural remedies include the ginger, the licorice root, the turmeric-based herb. One here in India, a very common preparation of the turmeric is nowadays very rampant in use, especially during COVID era. We have used so rampantly. Of course, I can't take the name, the brand, but this is basically turmeric preparation and very effective for unexplained dry cough. Especially, I'm talking of post-COVID cough, the long COVID. And of course, menthol are very soothing formulations. Steam inhalation is also very good because steam is an anti-inflammatory, steam is a mucolytic, and steam is also, of course, killing a lot of viruses and bacteria. The fluids, hydration is very important. So plenty of. Am I audible? Am I audible? There was some problem of the internet. Hello, Rahul. Am I audible?
Yes,
Rahul,
doctor, you are audible. Doctor, you are audible.
Okay. So continue. I thought some internet problem is there. Okay. So continue. Okay. Next, please. But mind it, if cough is persisting, then you have to find out the specific remedies. You cannot prolong the initial remedies for a longer period. Then, of course, certain pharmacological therapies other than natural remedies. These are the pharyngeal demulcents, for example, lozenges, cough syrups, Linctus, glycerin, and licorice. Expectorant, which can be mucokinetic secretion enhancer. They can be secretion enhancer, for example, sodium and potassium citrate. The guaifenesin, Vasaka is a herbal thing, ammonium chloride. And then can be mucolytics, for example, bromoxine, ambroxol, N-acetylcysteine, and carbocysteine. Cough suppressant for the dry cough can be opioids, for example, codeine or polcodeine. Non-opioids preparations, for example, noscapine and dextromethorphan. Antihistaminics can be used, the first generation antihistaminic like chlorpheniramine, maleate, diphenhydramine, or promethazine, or triprolidine and levocloprestine. Adjuvant bronchodilators, if the dry cough is because of the bronchospasm, then of course you can use the salbutamol, levosalbutamol, or terbutaline preparation for the management of cough. Next, please. Of course, the non-specific, treatment for the productive cough means when you are having expectoration, adequate hydration, humidification of air. Expectorant, for example, already discussed guaifenesin, ammonium chloride, iodide preparation, mucolytic, for example, steam inhalation, bromoxine, ambroxol, N-acetylcysteine, hypertonic saline, they all can be used for the management of productive cough as a non-specific treatment. Next, please. For the dry cough, how we approach for the management of dry cough, other than the specific therapy, you have to treat the underlying cause, but non-specific management of dry cough is a very interesting thing. Now we have the antitussive. The antitussives are two types, working in the peripheral irritant receptors and working on central cough receptors. Next, please. So antitussive can be the working on peripherally acting antitussive. So these are the levocloperistin, very commonly used in India. I think in Africa it should also be used. Benzocaine, benzyl alcohol, phenol, turmeric preparation. As I mentioned, in India, usually in COVID era, one of the turmeric preparation is very useful. This comes in lozenges form. Lidocaine usually use the bronchoscope just to prevent the cough during the bronchoscopy procedure. And local salagogues, for example, soothing preparation like honey, acacia, glycerin, and cherry can be used. Next, please. The centrally acting antitussive can be suppress cough by raising the threshold necessary to stimulate the cough center. These are the sedative or having hypnotic effect. The centrally acting antitussive can be narcotic, can be non-narcotic. Next, please. The narcotic one are the codeine and pholcodeine, hydrocodone and hydromorphones. These centrally acting antitussive non-narcotic preparations are the dextromethorphan and noscapine. Next, please. So management of acute cough in adults. What are the recommendations? Acute viral cough is almost invariably benign and prescribed treatment can be regarded as unnecessary. Simplest and cheapest advice may be to provide a home remedy such as honey and lemon. Opiate antitussive have a significant adverse effect profile and are not recommended. Dextromethorphan has been shown to suppress acute cough, but care must be taken in recommending dextromethorphan at higher doses. Menthol by inhalation suppress the cough reflex. First generation antihistaminics such as chlorpheniramine suppresses cough but also cause drowsiness. They may be a suitable treatment for nocturnal cough. Next, please. So how to choose the right, of course, the anti-cough combination should it should contain at least one evidence-based potent constituent. For example, dextromethorphan. Combination of two expectorants does not offer additional advantage, so avoid it. Bronchodilator for the dilatation of airway and airway clearance. So whenever there is evidence of bronchospasm, always take expectorant with bronchodilator. Sufficient doses of constituent to offer the therapeutic benefit, and indigenous should not antagonize, the ingredient should not antagonize each other's action. So this, you cannot have the suppressant as well as the expectorant in the same cup syrups. Next, please. How to choose the cup syrup? It's a very important thing. Most of the physicians in India, most of the general physicians in India, they get perplexed while choosing the cup syrup. And I used to get phone calls, sir, this cough is disappearing, what cup syrup I should use? So, of course, for dry cough, you have to answer one thing, whether this is associated with hemoptysis or this is associated with dyspnea. If it is associated with hemoptysis, then choice of cough suppressant is the codeine preparation. If it is associated with breathlessness or dyspnea, the choice of cough preparation is with bronchodilator. So if third variety of cough, which is without dyspnea or without hemoptysis, then of course dextromethorphan is. This is not evidence. This is my personal individual approach. You can, if it suits you, you can follow. Next, please. For productive cough, my approach is, if it is associated with dyspnea, then of course use bronchodilator and mucolytic, guaifenesin and ambroxol. If without dyspnea, then with expectorant like ammonium chloride and anti-allergic, for example, CPM or diphenhydramine or other antihistaminics. Next, please. So this is my personal approach, which I discussed, where I'm talking of for last more than 20 years and practicing personally also and advising to my student, and of course on the various forum, for example, Indian Medical Association and other forums. Codeine is a very important cough suppressant. It should be used for all patients who presented with hemoptysis. So centrally acting opioid antitussive, here you need sedation also. That's why you use a full drug. Suppress the central cup centers, causes sedation and drowsiness, can cause constipation, may lead to respiratory depression, potentially addictive, not recommended for children. That you have to remember. Next, please. Not recommended for children and pregnant ladies. Next, please. Next one. Dextromethorphan, yes. It is also a wonderful drug, centrally acting antitussive, inhibitor, suppress the cough reflex by depressing the medullary cup center associated heart centers. Coggener of the narcotic analgesic levoprenol does not depress the respiration in usual doses and is a non-addictive one. Next, please. Next, please. The antihistaminics and decongestant are usually used for the, of course, cough management. The antihistaminics, they have the drying action on respiratory mucosa and may be helpful in the early congestive phase. But if it is a bronchospasm, don't use them. They may also be beneficial in chronic cough due to postnasal drip associated with allergic sinusitis. First generation antihistaminics like chlorphene, maleate, and centrally acting opioid derivatives like codeine are often used or in combination in the management of non-specific cough, especially if it is associated with hemoptysis. Beneficial in chronic cough due to postnasal drip associated with allergic sinusitis. Next, please. The possible mechanism by which antihistaminics suppress cough. I'm not going into the detail, but there can be peripheral action, there can be central action, and that is how they work. Next, please. The chlorpheniramine maleate is a very common and very potent drug. American College of Chest Physicians recommend the use of a first generation antihistaminic combination with a decongestant for the treatment of chronic cough due to postnasal drip. Next, please. So that is the role for the management of this PND related. Diphenhydramine, which is available as an over-the-counter medication in most of the countries, is a first-generation antihistamic that is used in variety of conditions. It's a faster acting and action start within 15 minutes. Effect lasts for 6 hours or even more. It is effective in allergic cough, but the only thing is it does cause a lot of sedation. Next, please. Promethazine, it's a first generation strong anti-allergic agent. It shows long-lasting effect. It also helps to control nausea and vomiting. It helps to reduce the nauseating feeling in postnasal drip cases. Next, please. Adverse symptom associated with cough. Yes. So this you have to, whenever you are managing the cases of cough, you must be sensitized, must be oriented that there can be certain adverse symptoms associated with simply cough. They can be physical, they can be psychological, they can be social. Yes, very interesting. They can be social also. Physical includes the syncope, vomiting, chest pain, hoarseness of voice, headache, incontinence, hernia, sleep deprivation. Adverse effects of the cough can be especially if it is very cumbersome cough, then depression, anxiety, embarrassment, because you are in a party and you are having cough. So there is a lot of embarrassment. Fear of serious illness. I don't know what's happening. Cancer is developing or some kind of serious illness is developing. Frustration is there. And social, of course, relationship tensions, fear of public places. You are avoiding to go in public places because anytime you can have the cough. Avoidance of social event, interference with work, interrupt telephone calls, interrupt meals. Next, please. Potential complication of cough. Yes, sometimes the cough can present a very violent and very lethal type of combination. So you have to remember the central nervous system complications, for example, cough syncope, headache, cerebral air embolism, and you can remember the respiratory complications of the cough, for example, asthma exacerbation, of course tracheobronchial trauma, and the pneumothorax. Genitourinary incontinence can occur. Sometimes we have seen with cumbersome cough. Cardiovascular complication can be the arterial hypertension, the bradyarrhythmia and tachyarrhythmia. Genitourinary system complication can be the gastrointestinal symptom complication can be the GI reflux. It can be the, of course, the inguinal hernia or even splenic rupture, and muscular complications can be even rib fracture, or it can be a simple muscle pain. Next, please. And certain miscellaneous type of. Now you have to remember certain red flags where the emergency comes in mind. Hemoptysis, blood present during coughing or during in the sputum. Smokers more than 40 years of age with a new cough, it's an alarming sign. It can be indication of lung cancer. Change in cough, it can be again indication of lung cancer. Coexisting voice disturbance, a voice change, again indicative of lung cancer. Adults aged 55 to 80 years who have a 30-year pack year smoking. So high, of course, the history of heavy smoking, that's also alarming thing. History and currently smoke or have quit within the past 15 years. So this history also should be taken into account as a red flag. And prominent dyspnea, especially at rest or at night. So it can be paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea due to cardiac failure. Hoarseness of voice, it can be due to because of the, of course, laryngitis or lung cancer. Systemic symptoms, for example, fever, weight loss, which can be indicative of tuberculosis, and peripheral edema with weight can be due to heart failure. Trouble swallowing when eating or drinking, it can be reflux or hernia. Vomiting, recurrent pneumonia. Yes, it can be because of the obstruction. So certain lung cancer, they can cause intramural, extramural obstruction and leading to the recurrent pneumonia. Abnormal respiratory examination and or abnormal chest radiograph coinciding with the duration of cough. Next, please. So tips to prevent infection and promote health in acute cough is the cough hygiene. Eat a balanced diet, get enough sleep, manage stress, exercise moderately, stop smoking, avoid second-hand smoke or passive smoking, avoid contact with infected people. Practice of mask is a very good device for the avoiding the infected people and preventing air pollution. Practice good hand washing habits always so that you cannot transmit the virus, bacteria or other microorganism. And greeting by Namaste. India has given us such a beautiful greeting throughout the world during the COVID era. Please adopt the Namaste. It's a very scientific, very hygienic, and don't transmit it. Other way of greetings, hugging and so and meeting and touching, it's all, of course. So very important thing during COVID era, how to differentiate between the cough of common cold, flu and coronavirus. So as I used to say since the beginning of Corona, that all things which glitter are not gold. Similarly, the every running nose is not due to Corona. So whenever there is a running nose, you think of rather common cold and flu in spite of the coronavirus. So three features which differentiate corona from the common cold and flu are the fever, the cough, dry cough, and difficulty in breathing. I'm repeating, fever, dry cough, and difficulty in breathing. They are going in favor of coronavirus infection rather than common cold and flu. Next, please. Now, this is the recent consensus statement published in Indian Journal of Chest Diseases, and I happens to be co-author in this article. This is the national first consensus statement for management of cough due to post-COVID problem. A lot of people having the now post-COVID problem, and now we have given the term post-COVID sequelae. And out of this post-COVID sequelae, dry cough is a very important entity. And for this, how to approach, you just go our article published in Indian Journal of Chest Diseases, December issue only, and you will find the, of course, beautiful algorithm for this. If it is dry cough, then if it is a cough, usually post-COVID cough, take history and clinical examination. If they are just auscultate the chest, rhonchi or no rhonchi. If it is bilateral rhonchi, then inhaled bronchodilator are the choice. So most of the cases, post-COVID cases requiring inhaled bronchodilator for the response. And of course, with inhaled steroids. If it is persistent or worsening, then refer to tertiary care hospital. If no rhonchi, then cough suppression, non-pharmacological management, as we have discussed, pulmonary rehabilitation, breathing exercises, yoga, steam inhalation, all will work. And of course, if again cough is persisting, then refer to tertiary care center. So whether it is with rhonchi or without rhonchi, try to treat. If it is not responding, then refer. In summary, acute cough is a very common clinical problem. Clinicians should assess cough symptoms and their duration, of course, in patient to determine the appropriate treatment approach. Usually no investigation is required. Symptom-based treatment is beneficial in most cases. Adequate rest, nutrition, and hydration are important elements in treating cough and cold that should be emphasized. Keep an eye out for the COVID-19 in today's time. Next, please. Thank you very much and namaste. If there is any question, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you so much, sir. Would you please unmute, sir? Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Yeah.
the wonderful presentation. Actually, this is the time of the year in most of the African countries where curve is at the peak or going to be at the peak for couple of months. So we have already started getting very good responses from our audiences that this is rightly timed session and well delivered from your side with very systematic approach from like going from the basics to covering diagnosis, different clinical presentations, different types, and you have used these algorithms. I'm sure it is going to be really useful for our audience. Well, now, sir, we are moving to Q&A session, where please allow me to ask some questions and request you to attend these queries from our audience. So the first question which has come, it is about how to differentiate the cough due to uh, infection from that of the allergies.
Okay, very simple. If cough presenting with fever, it is going in favor of infectious cause. If cough is presenting with the upper airway problem like sneezing, running off nose, it is going in favor of allergies. If cough is going in favor of the association with some allergic trigger, it is again going for the, of course, the in favor of allergic cough. If cough is associated with weight loss or decreased appetite or malaise, it is again going in favor of cough. So please try to ask me, of course, the questions fast because I have to move on another program. The G News people, they are waiting for, of course, experience of today's vaccination.
Right, sir. I will just take up some important questions. Sir, are there any similarities between acute cough and the cough due to asthma?
Hello. Yeah, pardon me. Sorry, repeat the question.
Yeah. Are there any similarities between the acute cough and cough due to asthma?
Yes. Acute asthma, yes, this can present as a acute cough. So worsening of asthma, for example, asthma was well controlled and because of the exposure of some trigger, there's a sudden deterioration, then of course it can present cough. Otherwise, usually intermittent and chronic cough can be the presentation of asthma.
Okay. And next question, sir, we have got from many audiences that how about the management of cough in pediatrics, particularly below 2 years?
Yes,
Acute
yes.
cough specific.
Actually, personally, I don't have the experience of management of pediatric cases because I am a chest physician, I'm pulmonologist, and basically, usually patient more than 12 years, they are coming to us. But you see, the respiratory, of course, the respiratory syncytial virus infection. So viral bronchiolitis and the asthma, these are the two important of cough variant asthma, cough presentation in childhood, early childhood. So whenever a patient presenting with less than 2 years child, so think of two things. One is starting off bronchial asthma, and second is the viral bronchiolitis.
Okay. And sir, is it necessary to always accompany cough treatments with antibiotics? And
No, not that. This is the most common mistake which even in India GPs are doing. So what is the indication of starting antibiotics in a cough? That's important. So dry cough is not a case for antibiotic, number one. Number two, cough without fever usually is not a case for, of course, starting antibiotic. The only thing is when there's a cough associated with thick mucoid expectoration, which is usually, of course, colorful in terms of greenish, yellow. So whenever there's a yellow thick secretion, expectoration, and fever, so this is the indication for antibiotic. And especially in complete blood count, usually total leukocyte count is increased, neutrophil is increased, or whenever chest x-rays, so pneumonia, these are the conditions where you can start antibiotic. Otherwise, in COVID cough, no role of antibiotic. Allergic cough, no role of antibiotic cough. Usually asthma cough, no role of antibiotic cough. So most of the conditions, they don't require the antibiotics.
right, sir. And if situation is there where antibiotics are needed, which antibiotic or class of antibiotic is most recommended?
Okay, if it is upper respiratory tract infection, choice is macrolide, azithromycin. This is my personal also, and this is my evidence-based also. If there is a lower respiratory tract infection, then usually amoxicillin is the drug of choice. This is on OPD basis. If patient require hospitalization, then of course the choice of antibiotic change. Then of course we have to switch over the cephalosporin and some other upgraded class of antibiotics. So please, but if there is a, of course, you have more chances of pulmonary tuberculosis, then of course don't use the quinolone.
Right, sir. So, sir, we have a couple of more questions. You please suggest me, shall I take it or?
I think you can mail me and then I can the answer the question. So because G News people, they are waiting for me. So I think on mail, I will respond tomorrow or day after tomorrow.
Perfect, perfect. I will just email it to you.
You
Thank
can
you.
ask, even after this program, you can ask the question and you just mail me and I will give the adequate answer.
Certainly, sir, we'll do that. Thank you once again, sir, for wonderful presentation. And yeah, we'd like to pass on our sincere thanks to our audience as well as accrediting bodies like NMA and PPB from
Yeah, sure.
Kenya. And I request our audiences to please stay tuned with our post so that you will be updated about our upcoming webinars.